Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is another edition of Pinch Hit Friday. This week, I'm actually talking about something that's a little bit near and dear to me. For context, our twin daughters are 10 right now. We also have a 5-year-old daughter, but our twin daughters are heavily involved in gymnastics. They also play softball. So we have a lot of friends that have kids at this age as well. And I find myself more and more getting asked questions about how to get into strength and conditioning at the youngest ages. We also wind up playing triage a lot when kids get hurt in these ages. Lots of low back issues in the gymnastics world, lots of ankles and knees and wrists. And then obviously, being involved in the baseball community, people always seem to find me with shoulder and elbow stuff as well. So the question I find myself getting asked a lot is my 9 to 12-year-old son or daughter wants to get into strength and conditioning. They want to get faster. They want to get stronger. They want to keep up with their teammates. What do you suggest? I figured it would be good to actually do a little bit of a mock podcast based on some of the responses I have with conversations with parents while we're waiting for our kids or watching games and practice and things like that. And I always start with, first off, praise the interest. You want to cultivate a positive relationship with exercise that's going to sustain your kids long past the days of competitive sports. I think that's incredibly important. I'm a big believer that more is caught than taught. We haven't ever formally started a strength and conditioning program with our daughters, but they've tagged along to the gym with mom and dad. They've seen us do things actively where, when they were only 3, they were pushing each other in the sled at the facility. They love to come in and swing from the TRX and, climb on bars like their jungle gyms and just running around the gym and building forts with the plyo boxes and things like that. So I love the idea of just encouraging them to be around exercise, nothing super formal early on, and they just fall in love with it because they see people that they look up to participating in. Our daughters have grown up around professional baseball players and their kids, so it's become a very important part of just what their life is. They don't really know a life without exercise. The second thing I do after praising the interest is I really work to dispel the myth of it stunting growth. I'm hearing this less and less now than I did probably 5, 10 years ago, which is a really, really good sign because I think it is an old wives' tale. We just have to remember that, kids jump out of trees. Those are massive forces that they're exposed to. Every time you sprint, it's 6 to 8 times your body weight in ground reaction forces. Kids carry heavy backpacks around. Throwing a baseball is the single fastest motion in all of sports. There's some outrageous forces that the shoulder and elbow are exposed to when they participate in these things. So really, you don't have to worry a whole lot about strength training creating any kind of problem in this regard, as long as it's age appropriate. You're not going to bring a 12-year-old and try to have him back squat 315. That's a terrible idea. The weight room, though, is a very controlled environment where we can safely deliver a rich proprioceptive environment. So what I mean is that, the experience in the weight room can be, multiplanar. We can use various loading. We can use various implements, everything from a kettlebell to a dumbbell to a barbell, to a sled, to an aqua bag, to a sandbag. These things are all inherently different. So you can expose them to a wide variety of things. And, you can fail with no consequences in sports at that age, right? The forces aren't so high that you're going to wind up blowing out an ACL at age 8. But we use the weight room to really groove perfect technique. We want technical mastery in the weight room because we are ultimately going to add more load to the system to create some kind of adaptation that can benefit them in a wide variety of ways. So, with that all said, we get that out of the way. If you are interested in any of the research on that, Dr. Avery Fagenbaum at the College of New Jersey has done some wonderful research. A lot of it's been, related through, various NSCA publications and presentations, things like that. Definitely encourage you looking into his work. But, for context, I remember Dr. Phil Donnelly a long time ago, a physical therapist who was involved in professional baseball. He talked about how the collarbone, the clavicle, does not become skeletally mature until about age 25 in most people. So you don't see people going into college weight rooms and contraindicating bench pressing and things like that because we don't want to, stunt growth of the clavicle. So all that stuff is a wives' tale. You can punt it to the sidelines and move forward to trying to create a positive experience for your kid. So as you start to figure out how to do this appropriately, just remember that you're not just seeking out weightlifting. You're looking for something a little bit more comprehensive in a strength and conditioning program. You want mobility work, you want speed and agility training, you want proper landing and cutting mechanics being taught. You want prehab exercises that are specific to the sport. What you do for baseball and softball and tennis might be, inherently different than what you might do for, a runner or for a hockey player or whatever it is. And in some sports, you may actually, actually attack a strong metabolic conditioning emphasis. That would be the case with, with a hockey or soccer or something like that. Just remember though that early on, you're going to build global work capacity that's going to translate to just about any sport just by being consistent in a comprehensive strength conditioning program. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about doing tons and tons of metabolic conditioning. I'd certainly avoid lots and lots of distance running in young kids. I think one of the things that, if you listen to some old podcasts, Dr. Greg Rose introduced, this concept of really looking to train power hard during these growth spurts. Athletes tend to be very stiff, so it's an opportune time to really challenge some of that elasticity and make them more powerful. They might be tight, but it also, makes them more aware of how to move their bodies quickly. So it's actually a favorable thing that we encounter, as much as they might go through a little bit of a awkward, clumsy stage, which can actually be offset, with a good strength conditioning program that allows them to, preserve movement awareness and motor control through some of those patterns that they otherwise might lose. Um, Above all else, and this is going to seem very counterintuitive, you don't need insane expertise at this age. You don't need to go out and find out the absolute best person in the country. I joke that, my kids don't even need me right now. They need someone who is going to make it completely fun. They need someone who is going to nurture an environment where kids love to attend. I joke the analogy, it's like when you have a puppy that has to take its pill, you hide it inside the peanut butter. The fun, the camaraderie, all that stuff is the peanut butter, and that's just how you deliver them that exercise stimulus that is going to give them the favorable adaptations that help with their sport and things like that. Early on, you want to praise consistency, perfect technique, and effort. And above all else, you want to praise fun. The outcomes frankly don't matter with a 9 to 12-year-old strength conditioning program. It can be fun to get kids competitive with themselves to show improvement, which should be easy to spot early on with beginner gains. Like, I jokingly put my daughters on the force plates at our facility, and I just kind of have them jump every once in a while. And, they always just have this steady linear improvement, on a number of different tests over the course of life, just because they grow up, they get more mature, they learn to sync their bodies up a little bit better. And obviously they're participating in a number of different sports and doing some, casual training at the same time. As a heavy generalization, and my good buddy Alan Cosgrove has talked about this at length, more so with respect to adults, is that, boys, males, they tend to do very well with competition. Girls don't always do the same. I think often you see males that thrive on being singled out and challenged in front of a group. Girls, on the other hand, and this has been the experience with my daughters, they want to be part of a group. They don't want to just go play catch with dad, but they will go play catch with dad if three of their friends are there as well, participating, and we're doing a wiffle ball game in the neighborhood where everybody wants to jump in on it. So I try to leverage that a lot. When we work with young females, is try to create more camaraderie, have them all working together. So, and as an example, like you might have a chin up contest for the boys where they all try to get their biggest number, and there isn't a little bit element of competition taking place. Whereas, for the girls, maybe it's some kind of a group challenge, like a relay race with only one team where they try to beat their time, from one week to the next. Those are the kind of things that they do really, really well with. Mike Boyle's a good friend. He was the most downloaded podcast guest of 2024 on this podcast. And he put out an idea of this concept of 2 lifts per week from age 11 on. And he was speaking with his kids, and how it was something he thought he did really well for a son and a daughter that both went on to play college sports. And it really resonated with me. He said, find 2 lifts per week from age 11 on. Certainly over the course of age 11 to age 18, you're going to have in-season and off-season dynamics. Sometimes you might be really, really busy and only have time to get in one session, versus other times you might be able to get a whole lot more volume in, during off-season training where, maybe you're there 6 days a week, but it gets you to over 700 lifts by the time you're 18 years old. And that's a really, really big, difference maker for athletes versus the kid who lifts for 3 months, then takes 3 months off while he goes in season. Having 700 lifts by the time you're 18 is a powerful stimulus to everything from strength and power to joint stability to muscle mass to bone density to immune status to endocrine function, to confidence. And all those things work together to keep an athlete healthy and on the field. And I can't overstate enough that the biggest mistake we see people make on this path to trying to get to 700 lifts in these 7 years is huge gaps. I've talked about the concept of asynchronous recruitment on this podcast over the years. When you see this, untrained 13-year-old who's doing a dumbbell bench press set, and maybe they go and they hit, 30 pounds for a set of 8, and then they get absolutely stapled by, the ninth rep. Then they get their composure and they bang out reps 10, 11, and 12. And really that happens because what they've done is they've just kind of turned on and turned off slow twitch muscle fibers. They aren't able to tap into a lot of those high threshold motor units that really allow them to display, optimal strength and power and also coordination. So one of the things that we're really trying to do with consistent strength training at a young age is build that really, really good foundation. And it's just like brushing your teeth. You got to do just a little bit on a really regular basis to keep them progressing in the right direction. Now, all this is really easy to say, but here's the hard part. To do this, to get these 700 lifts in between age 11 and 18, you have to say no to something else. And this is a baseball podcast. And, baseball parents are right up there with tennis parents, some of the crazy sport parents that just have a really hard time saying no to something. Gymnastics, I'm learning, is one of the worst in terms of year-round participation, especially at a really young age. In baseball, in order to get some quality training in, which gives you a greater long-term outcome, it might mean you can only play for one team instead of 3 teams at a time. It might mean skipping a few tournaments in December and January in order to have a true off season. But if you commit to it as a priority at a young age and you stick with it, it is an absolutely massive differentiator. When I talk to college athletes, the number one thing that they tell me is that they wish they had taken strength conditioning seriously in their younger ages. They realized that if they had been stronger when they were 16, they would have had a massive leg up. And frankly, they probably would have had a much shorter, list of injuries by the time they got to those higher levels. On this note, if you are looking to learn a little bit more about these ideas, one of the most popular articles I've ever written in this realm on my website, it's called Strength in the Teenage Years, an Overlooked Long-Term Athletic Development Competitive Advantage. It should be an easy one that you can Google, or I'll throw it in the show notes on this one, but definitely a popular one. Can't overstate how important it is to create a favorable environment where it's fun. You can do it with friends. Doesn't have to be crazy. High level training by any stretch of the imagination. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be something that kids get really, really excited about. Sometimes you can layer it with skill work. Maybe, our kids go out and hit in the cage or do some long toss or something like that. And they come in, they throw the med balls, they do their, change of direction work, their sprint progressions. They do some strength training and they finish it up with some kind of team camaraderie drill where they, can really all compete with one another or work together towards a common goal. So love the idea of getting kids going at a young age. Hopefully this information was helpful. And thanks to all our friends who have contributed these questions. This actually came about from our good friend Holly Lucas, who lives not far away from us. So she's awesome. So I give her a particular shout out here as a great baseball mom and also a great baseball resource in the community. And appreciate the idea this week, Holly. So everyone have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. This episode is brought to you by AG1, the most comprehensive NSF certified for sport daily nutritional supplement I've ever tried. With so many stressors in life, it can be difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients they need to thrive. As a father of 3 young kids and a co-founder of multiple businesses in multiple states on top of still being an avid exerciser, I know that busy schedules can really take their toll on us. Whether it's poor sleep, exercise or life stressors, environmental factors, or simply not eating enough of the right foods, we can often wind up deficient nutritionally. This is where AG1 can really help. It's a game-changing nutritional insurance policy. They simplify the logistics of getting optimal nutrition on a daily basis by giving you just one thing with all the best things. That's why I use it daily, as do several of my family members, and we recommend it to a lot of our top athletes. One scoop of AG1 contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients that work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet to support energy, focus, digestion, and recovery. And this can all happen for less than $3 per day and without taking multiple products. While most nutritional supplements come to market and stay stagnant, AG1 continues to obsessively improve this one holistic formula based on the latest research, producing over 50 improvements in the last decade alone. They invest in the most absorbable and natural source of each ingredient and go above and beyond in third-party testing to ensure their customers continue to receive the highest quality and best tasting nutrition happen on the planet. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it'll work for you, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar per serving. They put 75 ingredients through the rigorous NSF certification test to come up with a safe formula that's trusted by some of the world's top athletes, including many of our own at Cressey Sports Performance. Right now, AG1 is giving our listeners a special offer of 10 free travel packets with their first purchase. Just head to drinkag1.com/Cressey and claim this special offer. These travel packets are perfect for supporting your immune system, energy, and gut health while you're traveling for games, training, or simply on the go. They can be great counterbalance to the less than ideal on the road food options that are out there for a lot of our traveling baseball players. So if you want to bridge the gap between deficient and optimal and give yourself the best chance of getting nutrient diversity, head to drinkag1.com/Cressey to get 10 free travel packets with your first purchase. Again, that's drinkag1.com/Cressey, Cressey. You won't regret it.